A very, very warm welcome to everybody. My name is Diana Johnson. I'm the Member of Parliament for Hull North and I co-chair this APPG. And I'd like to thank you all for attending today's launch of the APPG for Haemophilia and Contaminated Blood's final report on our inquiry into access to treatment. Now, we have a number of speakers and there will be an opportunity for questions at the end. And can I just say at the outset that we are using technology, so please bear with us if anything goes awry. We will endeavour to sort it out. So I'm just going to make some opening remarks. The APPG decided in 2019 to launch an inquiry into access to treatment and care for people with bleeding disorders across the United Kingdom. And at this point, I'm having a technical problem, but hopefully that's solved. Now, firstly, this was in light of the growing evidence that people with bleeding disorders were not getting adequate or timely treatment. And secondly, we saw increasing evidence of a wide variation between standards and outcomes for people with bleeding disorders across the United Kingdom. The inquiry took oral evidence, received a wide range of written evidence and visited the Haemophilia Centre at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. The Haemophilia Society also conducted a survey of people with bleeding disorders to provide data to inform this report. And we are extremely grateful to all the people and organisations who gave evidence to the inquiry, many of whom are here for this launch today. So a particular welcome to them. Now, funding for this inquiry and the publication of this report was provided by an unrestricted grant to the Haemophilia Society from SOBI. However, editorial control lay solely with the APPG and the views expressed in the report are those of the APPG. After the initial call for evidence, there was a delay in the final publication of the report, both because of the general election in December 2019 and a new parliament having to be established, and then the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. But we are very pleased to be able to launch this report today. And copies of the report have been circulated in advance of this meeting and are available on the APPG webpage. The report lays out the current state of treatment and care for people with bleeding disorders and makes 19 recommendations to the NHS, government and clinicians to improve outcomes. The APPG asks that key stakeholders consider this report carefully and look to implement its recommendations as soon as is practical. The report's recommendations fall into three main themes. Firstly, access to treatment goes beyond provision of drugs and includes proper care from a multidisciplinary team of professionals. As a result of a lack of resources, wider holistic needs are being ignored by treaters across the UK. The peer review of Haemophilia Centres published earlier this year confirms the scale of this problem, with only half of centres having sufficient physiotherapy provision and less than a third providing dedicated psychological or social work support. The UK has fallen behind other countries in outcomes for people with bleeding disorders. Secondly, there is inequity in access to treatment for many people with bleeding disorders. In particular, women seem to have greater difficulty in accessing treatment and care and appear to experience disproportionate delays in diagnosis and referral to care. Rarer bleeding disorders such as factor 10 deficiency and factor 13 deficiency have had or continue to have delays in approval of newer treatments. And finally, throughout the report, we see a lack of informed and collaborative decision-making between patients and clinicians. Most people with bleeding disorders did not feel involved in decisions about their treatment, and less than half felt able to influence their treatment. The APPG saw that the Commissioner's desire to drive down costs was unduly influencing prescribing decisions at the cost of patient choice. So today, we have three sets of speakers who will address each of these themes in turn. Each set of speakers will speak for 15 minutes and we will then take questions at the end of the session. And if you'd like to ask a question, please indicate this in the chat feature at the bottom of the screen or use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Story.